In this example problem, we're going to play the role of an owner of a bar in a small Midwestern town. For the sake of keeping this relatively small, we're going to assume that this bar only has two alcoholic options, beer and wine. We have surveyed a bunch of patrons of the bar that came in over the previous weekend, and we are asked to prepare a stacked column chart which visualizes the customer's propensity for different drinks based upon their sex. So we have here a list of, I believe it's 270 customers. Yep, absolutely is. And for each customer, we have their sex and what they ordered when they came in. We're trying to make a chart to visualize this. Well, the easiest way to do this is going to be actually to insert a pivot table. So if you hit insert, and over here you have pivot table, click on that, you get the pop-up over here, and the first thing you get is your table or your range, the entirety of the information that you're working with. And what we want to do is select all of the information that we have. So I'm going to highlight A1 over to C1 and then Control Shift down, grab all 270 lines from my customers. Then we have the option of putting in a new worksheet or putting it in an existing worksheet. I want to put it in this existing worksheet, and that cell right there looks as good as any, so I'm going to throw it into B11, and I'm going to hit OK, and it's going to open up my pivot table fields with my three different options. I want all three of these in my pivot table, so I'm going to click the check mark for all of them. And then what we have here in this crazy looking thing is the breakdown between male and female and what they drank. But what do these numbers mean? Well, this is the sum of the customer number for all of the responses. So for beer, this gentleman said he was 3, and he said 4, and he was 5. So we have our different identifying numbers for our customers. It's summing those all up, which makes no sense because we have 270 customers. Like if it was customer 270 said beer, he would count 270 towards his total, while customer 3 would only count 3. I mean, it's not what we want, is to have any kind of summation of our information. We just want the pure count of people that ordered soft drinks, beer, and wine, respectively. So what I can do is down here in values in the bottom right hand corner, click this little drop down arrow, and it says value field settings. And you go into here and you can do all sorts of information. You can find the min, the max, the product, the standard deviation, but what we want is the count. So I'm going to change it from sum of customer to count of customer, and that's going to tell us how many people were returned for that particular identifier within the sample set. And I'm going to hit OK, and now it changes to something that makes a whole lot more sense. Out of our 270 customers, 202 were male, 68 were female. Of each of those sexes, we have the propensity of them to order beer, soft drink, or wine, respectively. I want to visualize this guy, and we have options over here for rows and for columns. When we make our chart, whatever shows up on columns is going to, the return that we put in is going to be the thing that shows up in the vertical column. For right now, I'm going to leave sex in rows, and I'm going to put drink choice over here in columns. And now I have a breakdown in grid form of my 270 customers. We can see how much is broken down. Out of that 270, 180 chose beer, 30 chose soft drink, 60 chose wine, etc. And with that setup, we can now make our chart super easy. All I have to do is highlight all of the headers that we have over here. So I'm on the row that says row labels, beer, soft drink, wine, grand total, etc., down to the end of our information. And with all of that, I can go to insert, and this question is asking me to make a stacked column chart, which I'll find in the column section, and the stacked chart is the second guy over here. So now we got a little bit of a grid that people can look at over here, not particularly well labeled. And first of all, it has all of our buttons, our different fields that we had within our pivot table. Well, people don't need to see that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on any one of them. Don't care which one, right click, excuse me. And it gives you the option to hide all field buttons on chart. Get those out of there. We don't want to see those anymore. Now things are looking a little bit better. We can see that our two columns represent our female patronage and our male customers. And then we have a bunch of numbers up on the side. Let's make this a little clearer to read. I'm going to go to chart elements, and I want to add titles to my axis. and I want to add a title to my chart. And just for the sake of these bars, I think that I also want to add in data labels, just to make things a bit easier for people to read. For data labels, if you go to the arrow over here on the side, you can change the position of them or the way that they look out, but center is my default. I think it looks the nicest, just personal preference. So now let's change up our chart. Let's title this chart. What do we have right here? We have customers drink choice by sex broken down. For our axis title down here, what these things represent is the drink choice that they made. And then when in doubt, you could say number of customers over here. I like to go with the word frequency. And now our chart is way easier to read for anybody that's looking at this information. It does, however, have a bunch of blank space in here that we don't need. Yeah, I suppose over here that male is 202 is the highest. Let's see what it looks like in this case if I change my bounds. So I'm going to format this axis, and I want to make the maximum into 200. Well, that kind of works, but the problem is little math tells me this adds up to 202, and this chart, because I topped it at 200, makes it look like it's only 200. Somebody could look at this and just say it was 200, and they're going to take the time to add these together. So we got to make sure that our top bound at least exceeds the highest total we have, and that's the total of male customers. Let's go with 220. And here it's grouping by 50s. That's a weird way, negative 30. No, that's not going to work out for me. I don't like the way that that looks either. I could change the units over here to an interval that makes more sense than 50. How about 20? And there, that looks a little more reasonable to me. So with that, we can make some inferences about our customer base. Firstly, let's make this a little bit bigger so we can really look into it. Our clientele is highly male, massively male as compared to our female population. For men that enter the bar, they have a very high propensity to order beer. 142 out of the 202 did, it's like 70%. Whereas for our female customers over here, and again from our chart, we can tell that there's 68 of them. More than half ordered beer, but it's a significantly higher proportion relative of all the female customers we had that ordered wine. So if you're making choices about what drinks to have in this place, if you want to attract more female customers into your bar, which will probably end up attracting more male customers, maybe they want to diversify their wine offerings. Another thing to point out here too is that just because information says one thing or the other, you have to think deeper than what the numbers say. You have soft drinks in here, and it's the worst seller for both sexes that we have in our information. Should we get rid of soft drinks since they're our worst seller? My answer to that is no, that's an absolutely terrible idea. Who drinks soft drinks in a bar? Typically designated drivers, and it's a really bad idea to send a designated driver to a bar that's thirsty and have the only options that they can have be alcoholic, because that's how designated drivers stop being designated drivers real fast. So look beyond the numbers. Yes, the numbers tell you information, but you're always thinking holistically about the situation. And for us, if we want to have more foot traffic in our bar, we need to find a way to increase our female clientele. And since wine seems to be the more favorable amongst female clientele, maybe we want to expand our wine offerings. Or if we could, which will make our chart much bigger, but we'll deal with our analysts, maybe we go into the realm of mixed designer drinks. But something's got to happen here, because that's a terrible distribution between the two sexes. Clicking back on the chart over here, let's get this out of here. I want to go back to my pivot table fields. Once you have this set up, you can just move these choices around your different fields that you have to change the look of your chart. So what happens if I switch these two? If I put sex over here in the legend series and I brought drink choice down to the axis. Well, now you can get the same information from the chart, but now our drink choice are these three different options that we have over here, broken down by how many customers have them. This just further reinforces the fact that the portion of this bar that drinks beer is way more predominantly male, whereas the portion of wine over here, a full third of it comes from female. So it just reinforces the point that I had. But that being said, if you're trying to break this down by sex, this just makes more sense to me, because you're looking for the choices that the two different genders prefer.